Liquid AI, and they have introduced convolutional multi-hybrids for edge devices.
Yeah, this is interesting. It's an MIT startup out of Kendall Square, and they're using a very different um, attention mechanism to basically do a much more efficient job than the transformers. Akash, if you go down a little farther, um, I mean, think about this algorithm. One way to think about it is with the transformers, you have a room full of conversations happening, and in order to create insight, what you're doing is making sure every pairwise conversation is included, whereas this one is more about uh, directing the attention toward the passage of a message through that room to inform parties. And so it scales linearly. It doesn't scale exponentially the way that the transformers do. And what they're doing here is they've done an analysis of over 18 different models and modalities of those models using the Hyena Edge algorithms, and put it actually on a Samsung phone chip. And so it's a technical article. It doesn't really get into business value, but I was thinking this might be important or maybe even essential, because here we have a company, and they're gonna open source this model later in the year, that is fundamentally creating a new way of accessing this kind of inference in very, very efficiently on edge devices. So I was going to rate it at least important. What do you think here, Amanda?
Yeah, for me, Dr. John, I'm also important. Again, anytime it's liquid AI, if a leader's not paying attention to what they're doing as a company, because they're doing things kind of, I don't want to say against the grain, they're just doing things differently. And to your point, with memory, and now we're talking about edge, and edge is a really popular topic as well, because as we get more and more data, these things get bigger, even though in some cases we're seeing small language models now. So we may get smaller. Who really can predict the future at this point? But I think it's important to note what they're doing. The one thing I would say is yes, you're right. There's definitely tech stuff in here. And I mean, it could double as a product announcement as well, because they're talking about the product. But with that
Yes.
being said, I think it's still important.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the other thing is, I think people are not paying enough attention to the fact that these very powerful models are going to be on your phone and all the stuff that means. I mean, look at the revolution and how people interact, shop, customer service, the whole routine, by having everything on your smartphone, and people actually paying more attention to their smartphones than other human beings. I mean, now we're going to have these agents on your phone, and all the implications of that. You can have more privacy. You can, be detached. You can be detached from the network and still have this stuff. So anyway, let's give it an important. And as we keep an eye on this, it's going to become essential. I think our friends at Liquid AI seem to be doing some great work here. Next, Ankaj.
The next one comes from Dario Amodi, and he talks about the urgency of interpretability.
Yeah, what did you think about this one, Amanda? Did you have a chance to take a look?
So this one in particular, I'd say I didn't dig too deep, but what I would say is, though, I mean, there's some information here about let me see, I'm just going back through my notes as I have everything kind of scatterbrained. Looking at like talent, cross-disciplinary skills, things like this, competitive advantage, explainability. I mean,
Yeah.
so some of the buzzwords that we've been seeing lately. So I think on my end for this one, again, I didn't dig too deep into this one in particular, but I still feel like this one was on the important side.
Yeah, I thought it was important. I like Amodi's writing. He's got a great point here. The core point is that we don't want the model capability to be years ahead of the model's interpretability or explainability. And he also advocates in here uh, export controls on high-end AI chips, because he believes it buys the democracies a year or two over the authoritarian regimes. And I think that those 2 points are very important. And he goes through some of the work that they've done to essentially look at the neuron. The analogy they use is like where brain science, where we start to be able to identify neurons and groups of neurons that are in responsible for the creation of, or the recognition of certain concepts like wheel or car and so forth. And they have some techniques where they're able to do that partially inside the large models. And his plea here is that both Anthropic and he encourages OpenAI and Google to also give some of the activity, the attention and money to interpretability. And I think it's an important point. And whether it's interpretability, explainability, whatever we call it, and then has kind of an interesting argument where he says, look, if we can stay ahead of the authoritarian regimes, the combination of performance and interpretability, that 1 to 2 year thing, that would be good, because he believes, and I agree with him, by 2026, 2027, you can think of these models as having a group of the smartest people in the world working for you. And if we don't understand how they work, that's a problem. So anyway, I was on the border between important and essential on this one, maybe even essential. Ankash, do you have a point of view here?
No, John, I agree with your point. I think what Dario says here is that in terms of all the advances that are being made right now, whether it's reasoning LLMs or others, we need to understand the internal mechanics of those LLMs if we are able to, if we want to make uh, informed advances with them. Otherwise, it will be like we are playing with these black boxes and not understanding them completely.
Interesting. Ashish, who is a sophisticated researcher over at Microsoft, points out that Modi's also worried about his company losing relevance as AI and the Chinese models kind of sprint ahead. So absolutely, yeah, I think I'm gonna give this important. Next.
The next one comes from Bain and Company, and it talks about marketing's new middlemen, AI agents.
Yeah, I thought this was. I'm going to give this an essential because this is like some things we've done with our friend and colleague Pete Blackshaw over at BrandRank AI, and I believe he competes directly with Scrum, which is somebody that Bain is working with. And it makes the point that more and more customer decisions are being made from the models, and that they're seeing certain kinds of website traffic go down like 20, 30, 40% on HubSpot, 30%, I think. And then with Scrunch AI, sorry, that's the company, you're seeing that referral traffic is growing by 40%. And the way that you get the models to pay attention to you and to rank your company or your offering highly are very different than SEO. If you can scroll down on Kaj toward the end of this article, it passed the robots in the driver's seat, blah blah blah. Oh, by the way, go back up a little if you would. This reminds me of our if we see the this little illustration about, go back to the funnel up a little. This illustration of the funnel activity. This is very much what we talked about a year ago in our Design with Dialogue paper for Harvard Business Review, about how sometimes the human's in the lead, sometimes the machine's in the lead. Anyway, you can see here now that the robot is getting more and more involved. If you go down farther, all the way toward the end, it's going to talk about significant content, rich rich capability, and the way that you present your brand online needs to be aligned, and you have to monitor where you are in these models. So I'd rate it as essential because this is the way people are going to discover who you are and what you do. What do you think, Amanda?
Yeah, I can go essential. I was at least important on this one as well, but being as they're basically saying it's a new way to market. And I find it interesting because some of the things in here, I mean, as someone who's been in marketing operations for years as well, it's just so funny how in the last 10, 15 years, how marketing has totally flipped on its head. I
Yeah.
mean, the things that's being done now, and the fact that, like, towards the end of the article, it talks about experimenting quickly. I mean, even so many years ago, we'd be strategizing in a room with marketing folks, and we're the development folks, and it's like, when's the test going to happen? Well, a couple weeks, a month, whatever. I mean, it just would take forever because we're manually doing everything, even so many years ago. So it's just amazing to me the developments happening. So yeah, I could go important, or I'm sorry, essential on this one, Dr. John.
Yeah, and we'll have another article on Simular later, which relates to this. Okay, essential it is early on a Monday. Let's go. Next.
Yes. The next one comes from Johnson and Johnson and talks about how they have pivoted their AI strategy.
Oh boy, did this article annoy me. It's like, okay, we tried everything and most things don't, deliver value, and we're just going to narrow it down to the things that deliver value. It's like, ugh, really? Just another such an obvious point to make. Yes, that's what experimentation is. You don't do all future experiments. And now we have to focus on business value. Anyway, I was going to give this a super optional. Where are you, Amanda?
Yeah, I'm optional on this one as well.
Okay. We can dispose of this quickly. Optional. Next.
The next one is a research paper which talks about split reason, learning to offload reasoning.
Yeah, we have our friends up in Cornell figuring out how to parse the needs of the query, if you will, or the transaction, and then give some of it to a large model, some of it to a small model. I think this is an evolution of the hybrid semantic operating system we talk about here at GAI Insights, where you're going to have routing. We believe the core architecture for the big models is going to be query comes in, gets parsed into, oh, that's a traditional machine learning, that's a regression analysis, that's something you can give to a small model, that's something you can give to a big model. Then we'll have truth testing mechanisms in that semantic operating system, if you will. Is this high enough quality? Do we have enough confidence in the answer? And then a recombination into a full thing. And we see an instance of this here in this paper with the researchers at Cornell doing split reason, going into large and small models. So I was going to give this important. Got some good stuff. It's available. Good work here. What'd you think, Dr. A?
Yeah. I'm also an important on this one at least. And you know how when it gets to a little bit technical articles, I get a little nervous. So I don't like going necessarily essential because I'm afraid some of the leaders' eyes may glaze over. But I don't think this one was bad at all. And yeah, I think it's important to note one of the things they talked about in here as well was about how these cloud compute bills might start to go down again with some of these models and some of these techniques.
Sure.
And I feel like that's definitely an importance to leaders is anything that can start to save them money that they can start looking into and get ahead of, I think is a good thing because we know how at first this stuff was just way too expensive. And now, apparently it's starting to become more manageable. I try to stay out of those conversations because I hate computing that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But for that reason too, I think this one's important for the leader.
Yeah, the other thing is I'm not as afraid of recommending technical articles for two reasons. First, I do believe that a good AI leader is technical as well, but also these models are so good at explaining articles for you. Like I was using some of it on Liquid AI explanation and so forth this morning when I was preparing. Anyway, there's this wonderful tutor that can help you with this, and we can't forget that. Ankash, you have an opinion on this guy? I'm going to go important. You okay with that?
Yeah, certain. Yes, John. Certainly important for me.
All righty, important it is. Next.
Okay, the last one that we have for today talks about similar, which is a
Yeah.
browser agent for real world tasks.
Yeah, and with some fun videos in here, like a woman who's planning a Easter party for her child, and it goes and actually fills out the whole Amazon bucket and so forth. It claims 90% accuracy when browsing web stuff. I don't know. I'm on the fence between important and essential here. I just downloaded it. Haven't had enough time to play with it yet to understand how good it is. I don't know. Ankaj, Amanda, did you guys have a chance to play with this yet?
I did not play with it yet either, Dr. John, but I could go with important at least on this one as well, just because it's a very interesting breakthrough, right? It's kind of like the wave of the future. Some of this stuff coming out is just pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What do you think, Ankaj?
So, John, I think after deep research, operators are the one which are crucial for sort of LLMs helping us achieve a lot of tasks, right?
Yeah.
So this is certainly a good progress in that respect. So important for me.
All right, let's give this an important. I've been thinking about the liquid AI thing. I think I'm going to go ahead and give that an essential. Because that is, I mean, that's a whole nother algorithm and so forth. I think people ought to be aware of it, and it's running on an edge device. So let's give that one essential. So we'll have two essentials here. Ankash, as you get that together, we have our learning lab tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern U.S. time, 7 to 8, and we're going to be reviewing all the different OpenAI models. O3, 4.0, and what are the differences, what's available for deep research, what's not, what the different models are good for. So we're going to try to navigate the thicket of their horrible namings and their wonderful models, and let's see if we can't get a little clarity here. Ankash, here's our tote board. We have two essentials, convolution multi-hybrid for edge devices, and marking's new middleman. And then importance for most of the others. And Johnson & Johnson pivots its AI strategy from spray and pray to focus. And that one is optional. All right. So we got some good essential reading this starting off this week. The AI news and innovation continues unabated. I would actually say is accelerating. And remember that these models and machine intelligence can evolve at a much faster speed because they operate in nano time, right? So if they have an improvement, think of it this way: every year of evolution could be 1 billion years of human evolution, and there's an inefficiency there. Let's say that actually the time scale is more like, hey, there's 1 million steps to each improvement thing. That would mean 1,000 years of evolution in every year of human time. Anyway, we're going to see continued acceleration of capability. We're working on some new material on what we call frontier firms that understand how to live in this dynamic learning environment, build intelligence as assets and infrastructure, create hybrid organizations. And so we're just going to be kicking into that. So any other announcements, Amanda, Ankash?
Nope.
All right, 7 p.m. tonight Eastern. Be there or be square at the meetup. You can always get the articles at GAI Insights /articles. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and get our email newsletter if you don't get it. We continue the passion that we have here for helping you understand what is going on with Gen AI and ethically getting value in your organizations. Have a good day, and we'll see you all tomorrow.